No review into retro video gaming would be complete without including Super Mario Bros. This game raised the bar in video game technology and made Nintendo the leaders and dictators in the new home video game market. Since its release in 1985, it has spawned the most successful video game franchise of all time, selling 570 million copies of games involving the lead character Mario in a career spanning 37 years and counting. From the video game crash in 1982, Nintendo took the evolution baton and ran with it, using a combination of the technical capabilities of Nintendo's new console, research and development from its legacy of existing titles, and specialised focus on elements of gaming experience which had largely gone undeveloped in the video game industry, such as music, precision controlling, and the synchronisation of the game with the progressive difficulty of the situation a player finds himself in at the time. The result? Not just Super Mario Bros. On the NES, but a blueprint. A blueprint for future developers on the fundamentals of creating a side-scrolling platform game for them to embrace, or in some instances, ignore completely. Our new hero Mario sets out to rescue Princess Toadstool of the Mushroom Kingdom and freeing the citizens after hearing that the evil King Bowser and his army have kidnapped Her Majesty and turned the inhabitants, known as the Mushroom People, into objects such as bricks, stones and plants. Mario must work through 32 levels, set within 8 worlds, through vast, diverse terrains, overcoming progressively difficult enemies. At the end of each of the 8 worlds, Mario must battle through a castle and defeat one of the Koopa Troopa mini-bosses to progress to the next level. In later games, these would all have characters and identities to make them unique. On the final level, 8-4, Mario battles the evil King Bowser to rescue the princess and restore the Mushroom Kingdom to its normal state. The game's Wizard of Oz meets Robin Hood concept was universally understood and appealed to gamers and non-gamers all over the world. Its family appeal also contributed significantly to the game's success. Super Mario Bros. Revolves around our hero called Mario and his brother Luigi, only a playable character for the second player in the 2-player mode in Super Mario Bros. Mario can trace his roots back to Nintendo's 1981 arcade coin-op game Donkey Kong, where he was known only as Jumpman and had to rescue then-girlfriend Pauline from the clutches of Donkey Kong. The game was set over a series of 4 different stages with the objective of Mario, Jumpman, defeating Donkey Kong and rescuing Pauline. Donkey Kong would go on to create his own video game legacy and meet back up with Mario in other titles. The game, however, would set its own landmarks of being the first occurrence of a damsel in distress concept in video gaming history, and also the first example of a complete narrative told in video game form. Jumpman developed into Mario and joined his brother Luigi in the 1983 game Mario Bros., an evolution of Donkey Kong where Mario and Luigi battle enemies in a single-screen platform game set within the sewers of New York City. With 4 enemies of varying difficulty, Mario Bros. Progressed from Donkey Kong, with more elements to face in progressively difficult levels and also a range of bonus rounds to tackle. The game received enough critical and commercial success to convince designer Takashi Tezuka to use Mario as the hero of the new game, then in development stages. Mario Bros. Was still selling strong during production of what would become Super Mario Bros., so it made sense to capitalise on what was a strong selling point for Nintendo at the time. The decision was made, and Nintendo got to work on making history. Super Mario Bros. Was principally designed by Shigeru Miyamoto and Takeshi Tezuka of Nintendo's creative department, with the idea in mind to create a masterpiece, a final farewell to the Famicom and Nintendo's production of game cartridges, before setting off on a new development of a floppy disk-based console, the Famicom Disk System. Thanks in part to the success of Super Mario Bros., the Famicom Disk System would never be released in the European or North American markets, and would continue to use cartridge-based formats for some time. Miyamoto and Tezuka drew heavily on influence from previous Nintendo games in order to create Super Mario Bros., such as Excitebike, Devil World, and Kung Fu, and worked with the technical capabilities of the new Famicom system to take a step forward into the then new arena of side-scrolling platform games. Predecessors like Pitfall on the Atari 2600, a Phoenix concept from the video game Crash of 1982, Jet Set Willy, and the arcade hit from 1984 Pac-Land, using Namco's title character from its previous success, and actually based on the successful television show follow-up rather than the arcade game, had shown potential with the side-scrolling format, and it was now a recognised video game genre, with Wanted, Monty Mole, winning the first ever award for Best Platform Game in 1984. Super Mario Bros. Was designed with ease in mind. Rather than throwing the gamer straight into the challenge and supplying a confusing and long-winded instruction manual, the first world of the game, 1-1, was designed to introduce the workings of the game and familiarise the player through practical experience rather than theoretical comprehension. The World 1-1 format itself is a landmark in video game history and would go on to be a staple necessity of video games on many formats in various genres. The team initially based the game around a small version of Mario, originally intending to make his size bigger in the final version. They changed their theory and kept a small Mario, deciding it would be more fun to let Mario change his size via a power-up. It was this small yet critical change in gameplay that would make the blueprint of Mario games forever, and also give the team the name title Super Mario Bros. As a nod to the new Super Mushroom, and making the title of the game distinctly and curiously different than the original single-screen release. The early level design was focused on teaching players that mushrooms were distinct from Goombas, an entry-level recurring enemy shaped like a mushroom, and that the Super Mushroom would be beneficial to them. This is why in the first level of the game, the first Super Mushroom is difficult to avoid if it is released. Nintendo focused on music, and more specifically the synchronization of music with difficulty, much more than on previous titles. They commissioned Nintendo sound designer Koji Kondo to write a 6-song musical score. Previously in video gaming, music was used to attract attention to a change in play or to identify an event clearly, not to enhance the game in any way. Kondo had 2 goals in mind for his music: to enhance the emotional and physical experience of the gamer, and to convey an unambiguous sonic image of the game world. The irony of using the word Sonic to describe Nintendo's early success is not lost on gamers, I'm sure, but we will visit that story another time. It seems impossible to comprehend today that music was not an integral part of video games. For that, Kondo should take full credit for his work on Super Mario Bros. And the legacy he laid down for future video game developers and all the good work that followed. Having good music and solid gameplay were a great start in making Nintendo's masterpiece cartridge. They would not be completed if there was no synchronization between the two. Whilst this was not a new notion in video gaming, Taito's 1978 hit Space Invaders used this to good effect, Kondo and Nintendo can be creative with evolving the idea significantly. With Kondo asking the question, do the music and game fit one another? And Nintendo understanding the importance of music and ensuring Kondo was a critical part at the beginning of the production and not an afterthought to nearly complete title. Kondo was exposed enough to be immersed and influenced with the game, resulting in his music heightening the feeling of how the game controls. Development did not stop there with Kondo. Nintendo provided him with a prototype of the final game, a complete version, in order for Kondo to get an idea of Mario's environment and revolve his music around it. Finally, the music was adjusted again based on the expectations of Nintendo's playtesters. It seemed from the start that the secret ingredient to the development of Super Mario Bros. Was passion. Working with this X Factor, rather than just a job producing a game, raised the bar in video game standards forever. Super Mario's success was in part down to the gameplay not being out of the realm of the regular gamer, or new gamer. Technical advance was married with simplicity in gameplay too, and this was a huge part of the franchise's success for years to come. Nintendo continued what they began in the early days of video games, with an athletic games format. They wanted Mario to run and jump, and incorporate many obstacles on his journey. This athletic games legacy, ingrained into Nintendo, would serve them well, not just with Super Mario Bros., but with many other titles to come, and result in hundreds of millions of athletic-based titles being sold under the Nintendo brand in the future. Mario starts with 3 lives, and gets power-ups such as super mushrooms, fire flowers and stars to enhance his abilities to beat foes. Earning extra lives is also both attainable and simple. Either collect 100 coins, or create a consecutive points combination of 10,000 by jumping on enemies without touching the floor, or hitting them in succession with an enemy Koopa Troopa shell. The game excels in fairness, yet is also progressively difficult. With no continues though, the game must be beat in one turn. Whilst this is not impossible, it still challenges seasoned gamers to this day who wish to beat it. The focus on control response was critical to Super Mario Bros.' success, and without it, would produce a distinct lack of synchronization that would severely damage the game. With Super Mario Bros. Passionately viewed as a video game in development stages, and not a toy, as other production and development studios were to view video games in years to come, controller response was a high priority, and many consider this the most important piece of the Super Mario Bros. Puzzle to show the true value of the game. Surprisingly in the game, glitches and anomalies considered by the game's developers actually contributed to the game playing in a huge way, with a lot being kept in the final game and still playable to this day. The blocks containing multiple coins? A complete mistake and a program glitch that was decided to be kept after the developers felt it added value to the gameplay. There are also several points in the game where players can use the Koopa Troopa's shells to kick and generate points from following it smashing into their foes, resulting in a 1-up extra life if the player hits a consecutive number of enemies in a row. There is a way the shell can be trapped in certain spaces and allow Mario to jump on the shell in an almost infinite amount of times, causing the player to earn a 1-up extra life almost every time he jumps on the shell. Miyamoto explained later that the trick was intentionally designed and tested, but people turned out to be a lot better at pulling the trick off for ages on end than we thought. The game was not without its limitations, both financially and technically, though was dealt with well by the designers. Super Mario Bros. Was developed via a 256 kilobit cartridge. Due to technical limitations at the time, space-saving tactics such as sprite recoloring and sound effect recycling were used, and to good effect too. After completing the game, the development team decided that they should introduce players with a simple, easy-to-defeat enemy, rather than beginning the game with Koopa Troopas. By this point, the game had nearly run out of memory, so the designers created the Goombas by making a single static image and flipping it back and forth to save space, while creating a convincing character animation. Super Mario Bros. Helped Nintendo achieve worldwide sales of its entertainment system of over 61 million consoles, and became the console's biggest selling game. It went on to create multiple sequels in Super Mario Bros. 2 and Super Mario Bros. 3, and also created many spin-off games for the NES such as Dr. Mario, a Tetris-style puzzle game, Mario's Time Machine, and Mario is Missing. Super Mario Bros. Would be repackaged several times, being sold most memorably in the NES Action Set as a dual ROM cartridge with Duck Hunt, a shooting game requiring the new NES Zapper to be used to play the game. The NES Action Set would sell for $299 in North America and be a hugely popular packaged version. Super Mario helped Nintendo achieve market dominance. By mid-1986, 19% of Japanese households owned a Famicom system. By 1988, 1/3, and in that year sold as many consoles as its rival, the Commodore 64, had sold in 5 years. And by 1990, 30% of North American households had a Nintendo Entertainment System, by comparison to the 23% market for all personal computers. Nintendo owned 90% of the video games market by the end of 1990, and thanks to Super Mario Bros., we're in a position of market dominance and ready to unleash a new console to the world, with a more sophisticated graphic and sound feel to it, and Super Mario Bros. Would get a new home and makeover to go with it. Super Mario Bros. Would break boundaries with a range of merchandise to follow and its own television show and anime film, and would also be the first video game to be made into a Hollywood movie starring Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo, and pave the way for a new genre in the movie industry, grossing over $5 billion to date. Whilst the game broke boundaries and was designed as the masterpiece to the cartridge era, the purpose for Nintendo was to create something quick and not make the public wait until 1986 or later for this and their next title, which was taking a longer time to create. The public lauded Super Mario Bros. Whatever Nintendo had in their pipeline next must at least match up to it.